As one reads many Old Testament stories, one can catch echoes of a time when these were tales meant to be told aloud. King Nebuchadnezzar and his Babylonian armies had attacked, ransacked, and destroyed much of Jerusalem, and then they took back with them many hostages. And included among them were many young lads, especially if they were well connected, smart, and good looking. King Nebuchadnezzar planned to raise them up, train them to be of use to him, and place them in his government. Perhaps he ascribed to the notion that it is best to keep one's friends close and one's enemies even closer. But whatever his reasoning, there are four of them that we know of yet today: Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, they did quite well. They were sharp lads, and they rose to high positions in the king's government, and this, of course, endangered a bit of jealousy. But more about that in a moment. Now, Daniel we know of especially for his ability to interpret dreams. And the first dream that he interpreted that we know of was when King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream of a huge statue with a golden head. The rest of the body was made of all different substances, and it was easily and completely destroyed by a single stone. And Daniel interpreted it to say, "Sire, the statue is Babylonia. The golden head, that is you, and I fear the destruction shows that Babylonia will not do so well after you are gone." Now, one might think the interpretation of such a dream would teach King Nebuchadnezzar that such huge statues are rather temporary, but apparently he wasn't so quick learning about certain things. For in the very next chapter, he built a huge golden statue. Translated from cubits, it was some 88 feet tall, 8 foot 8 inches wide, and he placed it smack dab in the middle of the kingdom so all could see it. And he issued a command that all of his satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors come to the throne room. Now, in these days, when King Nebuchadnezzar said something, you did it. So immediately to the throne room came all the satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors, there to hear the herald cry, "Hear ye, hear ye! King Nebuchadnezzar hereby decrees that when you hear the horn, the pipe, the harp, the lute, the drum, and all the other instruments, thou shalt stop what you are doing, turn towards that giant statue in the center of the kingdom, hit your knees, bow down, and worship that statue. If you do not, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace. Thus says King Nebuchadnezzar." Well, all the satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors knew what their job was. That was to spread this news far and wide. And soon all the people knew that as soon as they heard the horn, the pipe, the harp, the lute, the drum, and all the other instruments, they would stop what they were doing, turn towards that statue, drop down, bow, and worship that statue, because nobody wanted to be tossed into a fiery furnace. And so everybody was spending their lives listening carefully. And finally, yep, there they heard it. There was a horn, there was a pipe, there was a harp, there was a lute, there was a drum, there were all the other instruments, and everybody stopped what they were doing. They turned towards that statue, they dropped down, and they worshipped it. Well, everybody except, remember those Hebrews that I mentioned? Daniel's out of the picture for some reason now, but Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not worship the giant golden statue. And word got around. And remember I mentioned there was a bit of jealousy in the court? Wasn't long before some of the other courtiers came and asked for an audience with the king and said, "Hello, your highness, and aren't you looking handsome today? Sir, no one is above you, dear King Nebuchadnezzar. Now, we're not trying to cause problems, but you know how you made that law saying that when we all heard the horn, the pipe, the harp, the lute, the drum, and all the other instruments, we should stop what we were doing, turn around, drop towards that statue, and bow and worship it, otherwise we'd be thrown into the fiery furnace?" Well, again, we're not trying to cause problems, no. But those three Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't do it. Is there a bit of heat in their future, sire? Well, King Nebuchadnezzar was none too pleased, but these were some of his favorites, so he commanded them to come to his throne room, and he said, "Gentlemen, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I am hearing rumors of misbehavior, that you did not follow my decree. Let me make sure that you heard what I said clearly. I have decreed that as soon as one hears the horn, the pipe, the harp, the lute, the drum, and all the other instruments, one shall stop what you are doing, turn towards my fine golden statue in the center of the kingdom, bow down and worship it. Otherwise, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace. I will give you one more chance. When you hear that music, will you drop down? Because what God can save you from my furnace? And the three said, Sire, you are our king here in Babylon, but we worship a God that is mightier than anyone. And we have learned since we were young that he is a jealous God. He will have no other gods before him. And he's not too pleased with those who worship golden idols. So, no, sire, we shall not worship your golden idol. Yes, God can save us from the fiery furnace. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But we do know that we're not going to worship your idol. King Nebuchadnezzar was furious. They say that his face was contorted with rage. And he called for all his satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors to come and stoke that furnace so it was 7 times hotter than usual, and to bind up tightly Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and fling them into the furnace. And so they did. And suddenly King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet, and he stared, and he said, Satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors, did I not tell you to stoke that furnace 7 times hotter than usual, and to bind separately Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and fling them into the furnace? Did I not tell you to do that? And they all said, yes, sire, yes, you told us to, and we did that. And he said, then why? Then why am I seeing those 3 men walking around unfettered in the furnace, and there is a 4th with them who looks like the son of a god? And it looks like the center of that furnace is not hot, but it looks like it is cool as a dewy spring morning, and they are all singing praises to their gods. Can you tell me why this should be? And I'm sure at this point, all the satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors, they were trying to get as far away into the corners of the room as they possibly could to escape the king's ire, because nobody knew what he was going to do next. And I'm sure what he did next surprised them all, because he got as close to that furnace as he possibly could, and he called out, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out of that furnace. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of that furnace, the 4th being vanished. And King Nebuchadnezzar and all the satraps, prefects, governors, and counselors huddled around the 4 lads, and they realized that they were not harmed at all by the fire. Their hair was not singed. There was no burns on their clothing. They didn't even smell of smoke or fire. And at this point, King Nebuchadnezzar issued a decree. Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for when they risked my ire and risked their lives in obeying his law not to worship any idols, he sent an angel and rescued them from my fiery furnace. And I hereby decree there never be any words spoken against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for no other God can do what their God